My name is Candace. Standing on the graduation stage as the valedictorian, I locked eyes with my father. The crowd was applauding, but in his eyes, I saw a mix of shock and realization. He finally understood that I wasn't just his daughter anymore. I was the auditor coming for him. Outside the venue, he grabbed my arm roughly, demanding the so-called scholarship money and claiming I owed him for raising me. With a calm smile, I showed him the emptied UTMA account, the very one he'd used as a secret slush fund. I reminded him that the custodianship had expired at midnight, and legally, every cent was mine. If he dared to challenge me, he'd have to explain those kickbacks to the IRS. In the distance, sirens wailed, and his empire was collapsing right before his eyes. It all started long before this moment. I grew up in a family where my twin sister, Lily, was the apple of my parents' eyes. My father, Mr. Thompson, was a cold-hearted businessman, always focused on profit and image. My mother, Mrs. Thompson, was a passive woman who always followed my father's lead. One day, I went to my father with financial aid forms. Before I could even finish speaking, he crumpled them into a ball and casually tossed them into the trash, just like he would junk mail. He leaned back in his leather chair and said, "You are dead capital, Candace. An asset with no yield." Then he wrote a check for $5,000, not for my tuition, but for a security deposit for Lily's luxury apartment. He said she needed a proper environment to thrive, as if my presence was insignificant. I didn't react with anger or tears. Instead, I went to my bedroom, the smallest in the house, which always felt more like a storage space for an unwanted child. I reached into the vent under my desk and pulled out a waterproof and fireproof box I'd hidden there 3 years ago. Inside were 2 high-capacity external hard drives and an encrypted laptop. While Lily was busy building her social media presence, I'd been studying forensic financial analysis. I knew how to find the hidden sins in the numbers. I connected to the house network one last time. My father's home office server was protected by an expensive firewall, but his arrogance led him to use the same password for his secure server as his country club login. With one keystroke, I got in. I wasn't after tuition money anymore. I was looking for leverage. I started Mirror, copying his entire financial history, including tax filings, offshore transfers, and consulting fees that didn't match project invoices. Downstairs, I could hear the clinking of champagne glasses as they celebrated Lily's new apartment and the shedding of dead weight. I let them laugh, knowing that I was downloading the evidence that would bind them. After the download was complete, I left the house with only the data in my backpack. I knew the war had truly begun when I walked out that door. 6 months before that, I was walking down the long driveway to go to my library shift. My father had always refused to let me park my old car next to his fancy ones. That morning, a brand new sports car blocked the driveway. Lily was inside, adjusting the rear view mirror for a selfie. She looked like a celebrity, not a student. My father stood by the car, beaming with pride. I asked him where the money for the car came from. He said it was from my grandmother's trust, which was supposed to be for our education. I was heartbroken. He laughed and told me that Lily was an investment, while I was a depreciating liability. He said we should paint the billboard, meaning focus on Lily, not me. That was the moment I realized he saw us as commodities, not as his children. Standing at the bus stop in the rain, I knew I had to fight back. Later, I received an invitation to a family dinner. When I arrived, the dining room was set up like a theater. Lily was live, streaming her dinner, and my father served me a meager portion of food. He said they were doing this for me, to build my character. My mother added that I needed to learn resilience. Then, my father produced a manila envelope, saying he needed to close a small custodial account of mine to stop the maintenance fees. I knew from my silent audit that the account had over $400,000, money he'd been funneling there to hide from the IRS. He made a critical error by listing the original source of funds, which linked him to embezzlement. I signed the document, knowing I'd just gotten the evidence I needed. I then went to Professor Harris, my father's corporate rival, who was auditing the merger my father's company was trying to close. I walked into his office without an appointment, with only a manila folder. I told the receptionist that the folder contained the reason his audit of my father's company was about to fail. Professor Harris was impressed by the evidence I showed him. He hired me as a junior analyst. Over the next 3 months, I worked day and night, tracing shell companies through different tax havens. 2 days before graduation, I finally got access to the UTMA account. At first, I panicked when I saw the account was closed. But after digging into the raw logs, I found a pending transfer. At midnight on my birthday, I reclaimed the $450,000 and redirected it to a private trust. Now, as I stand here, watching my father's downfall, I know that the dead capital he thought he could discard has come back to haunt him.